Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar. Our title for today's program is Expanding Food Waste Reduction Programs in Commercial and Institutional Settings. This is part of Busch Systems' Green Thinking webinar series of programs focused on different aspects of waste prevention, roughly every month, every other month as the season goes by. My name is Alec Cooley. I'm a senior advisor here with Busch Systems, and I'll be your moderator for the program today. So as by way of a setup, as everyone who is joining this program knows, food waste is a significant issue, both for the environment, but for the environmental costs of producing and then disposing of waste, and also in the face of food insecurity that people face in every community. The last 10 years had seen the rise of legislation, initiatives, and resources to address food waste in residential, office, and other settings. As the title suggests, today's program is going to focus really on the restaurants and other food service operations. While there are many opportunities to prevent and divert waste, we also recognize there are barriers that facing local businesses, from limited space and other operational hurdles to a lack of service providers, to simply not understanding the options that are available that can help local businesses to save on production and disposal costs. Our presentations today are going to touch on some of the best practices to prevent food waste, but the main focus is going to be more on the strategies of how we engage those food service operations. How do we make them aware of the opportunities? How do we help them to overcome the barriers to implementing those practices? Next slide, please. So we have, when we shift to the next slide, there we go. We have two presentations today that we're highlighting separate case study examples, including an NGO-led initiative working with local partners to recruit and support diversion efforts in multiple cities across Canada. Then with our next, we'll drill down and to hear about a municipally led effort working with restaurants in Denver, Colorado. In a moment, I will introduce, so first we're going to start with Maggie Baines of the Circular Innovation Council, talking about the Canadian case study, and then we'll follow up with Leslie BAESENS and Amber, who was with the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment, as well as Amber BARBELLA, who is with the consulting firm Diversion Designers, who are going to present the Denver case study. Next slide, please. I encourage you to stick around for the very end. If you're not familiar with Busch Systems, we are a company based in Ontario, Canada. We are a manufacturer of fine recycling and waste bins, including bins for different organics and food collection applications. We're not going to focus on that during today's program, but at the very end, I'm going to welcome my colleague, Rayanne Dos Reis, who is with our sales team, and she's, for those who want to stay on, she's going to walk through some of the products we have available that you might be interested in. So I encourage you to stick around for that at the end. Next slide. With webinars, we always have the limitation of not really being able to talk to each other in person, but we want to encourage as much interaction as possible. So keep in mind that the two different ways that you can do that. The chat in your Zoom bar is if you have general comments, things you want to share, examples of things you've done in your own community, points you want to riff on from the speakers. We encourage you to have an active conversation in the chat, and I encourage our presenters also to engage with people when they're not speaking in the chat. If you have a question that you would specifically like addressed on the live program, use the Q&A function separately to put that into there. That's where I will be looking in as the program goes by for questions that I'll ask out loud when we get to the end of the program. So just keep that in mind. If you want something actually addressed by the speakers, put it into the Q&A for general interaction. We encourage you to use the chat. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our first speaker. We have Maggie Bain, who is a project manager with the Institutional, Commercial, and Industrial Food Waste Diversion with the Circular Innovation Council. And Maggie will tell us a little bit more about the CIC and the good work that they're doing. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, or wherever you are. I work remotely from Vienna, Austria now, so it's the evening for me. But I wanted to thank Alec and the team for, inviting CIC to speak on this topic. So yeah, excited to present this afternoon on some of the work we're doing. Okay, as Alec introduced me, I'm Meg BAIN. I'm the project manager with Circular Innovation Council, which I'll tell you a bit more about in a second. In particular today, although CIC is in a bunch of different industries having to do with circular material recovery and reuse, etc. Today, I'm going to be talking about the pilot program model that we run for improving food waste diversion and organic waste diversion in the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector. So my discussion, although a case study, is sort of more from like a systems design perspective, while Amber and Leslie will be jumping into. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit about CIC first. So we're a Canadian national nonprofit. We were established as the Recycling Council of Ontario back in 1978, but rebranded back in 2020 as CIC with a broader mandate to kind of expand outside of recycling. Our vision is to be recognized as a global ambassador for the circular economy in Canada and elsewhere, and with a mission to put circular economy concepts into action. So our expanding membership reflects a wide variety and diversity of sectors and stakeholders within and outside Canada. Our organization tends to focus on three main pillars of action, which I will tell you about in a moment. There we go. The three main pillars of action we focus on are policy and advocacy, which is, policy advocacy, usually having to do with research and policy briefings and recommendations, advisory services. We also provide resources and services both within industry and to the general public. And then we try and actually go out and de-risk some of these like new system models, pilot programs on the ground, gather data and learnings. And, we usually partner at a community level for this. So different municipalities and regions within Canada. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of be giving a general kind of background on ICI food waste diversion challenges that the sector experiences, just to kind of position everyone. So although I'm talking about the Canadian ICI sector here, this also broadly applies to the US as well. So for Canada, it's estimated that the ICI sector generates about 9 to 14 million tons of food and organic waste annually. And unfortunately often lacks the infrastructure, funding, data, information, and policy supports to support these diversion practices and adoption of these systems. So compared to residential, this system is often a lot more fragmented while also challenging for large companies to access, it's especially challenging for small and medium-sized businesses to access. Alongside the businesses themselves, these similar challenges also come up for local governments and service providers like waste haulers and processors. All the actors in the system are kind of having their ability limited to deliver ICI-focused diversion solutions. And overall, these system barriers make these circular and management practices of food and organics diversion difficult for food generating businesses to adopt at scale. Just a little bit of background research. Alongside these pilot programs, we also conduct research. So ECCC, Environment and Climate Change Canada, back in 2025, commissioned us to do some research looking at municipal and ICI perspectives and on organic waste diversion across Canada, looking at barriers, drivers, opportunities, both from like an experiential on the ground level, but also from a policy level. So in this research, some of the key barriers in the system that will not be a surprise that limit IC&I participation in organics diversion is often financial and infrastructure barriers. So like I said before, businesses often face high costs when implementing organics diversion practices, with few incentives to adopt costly practices, especially if a municipality doesn't have a bylaw in place. Policy and regulation gaps. So lack of consistent and coordinated regulations and policy like bylaws or landfill bans, diversion targets between different levels of government, industry, and the ICI actors make it difficult to kind of move the system forward together in a coordinated way. And alongside this, this also leads to governance fragmentation. So the roles and responsibilities between the different actors in the system are often unclear as well. And this leads to siloed decision-making and the limited collaboration across the groups for designing effective systems together at scale. And a big one is also there's large gaps in tracking IC&I diversion data. So both in Canada and the US, we're missing a lot of the reliable data on what the potential of ICI food waste generation is and what the need is. And this gap makes it hard for regions and municipalities to plan the necessary infrastructure as well as measure diversion performance once things are implemented. So from these kind of barriers and challenges, we identified 4 key leverage points as opportunities to move the system forward. So the first obvious is making diversion more affordable for businesses through various funding structures, incentive structures, as well as designing more efficient and cost-effective service models within small geographic regions. Being able to strengthen cross-sector collaboration and governance of the systems also, across all of these key actors helps align solutions, and it will reduce the fragmentation of the systems. And some of what we're going to talk about today, which is using small-scale pilot models to kind of field test new local solutions that really the aim is to de-risk the models for municipalities and for the ICI sector, as well as the service providers, reducing financial and logistical risk for businesses and industry, local government, as they can kind of test things out as they're working through new systems workflows, and also, whether it's policy or programming or pilots, building in diversion data tracking is extremely important for not just measuring impact, but for baselining the region in the first place and understanding what the need of the ICI sector is, whether that is kind of the broad ICI sector or the different subsectors within it, restaurants versus grocery retailers versus offices, since it's often not sort of a generalized approach. Okay, so from these opportunities, one of the things we're doing is launching these place-based pilot models across the country in different municipalities. We call it the Commercial Food Waste Diversion Program. So what is the model? So CIC partners with municipalities and waste haulers and organic material processors, as well as surplus food recovery organizations, in order to create strong regional partner networks to be able to design and implement and deliver these place-based pilot programs within different cities. There we go. So since 2021, we've been delivering these pilot programs across multiple provinces in Canada, namely the key 6 communities we've been in or are still in are Edmonton and Regina, our 2 current ongoing pilot projects. We've also delivered in Strathcona County and Westlock in Alberta, which are near Edmonton, and then Guelph and Wellington County out of Ontario. Okay, so the point or goals of these pilot projects are to improve ICI establishments' access to food waste diversion services, essentially by leveraging regional economies of scale that the small establishments don't usually have access to. So by grouping businesses together on sort of a cooperative group service model for the collection routes, this helps improve the costs of collection by making the diversion system itself less fragmented for the actual service providers running it. So how it works is first we engage and recruit neighboring ICI businesses onto the pilot. So this is all subsectors: hospitals, hotels, grocers, manufacturers, restaurants, in some cases multi-res depending on the city. And we work one-on-one with them to assess food recovery and diversion needs. And so for those who have, my flow chart is behind. I'll continue. For those who have surplus food to donate, we do try and encourage participating businesses to work with our food recovery partners. So in Canada, we work with mainly Second Harvest and Leftovers Foundation. And we bring them in as partners, and we go to our participants and essentially train them on how to use the surplus food rescue apps as a free and simple way to donate this surplus edible food back to local community service agencies, so it can be put to higher value use and redistributed throughout the community. There we go. And then for the inedible organic waste, we create transportation efficiencies for the haulers by consolidating ICI organics collections in as tight a geographic route as possible for the neighboring ICI businesses participating in the pilot, similar to residential organics waste collection. So this helps bring cost reductions to the collection route for our partner waste hauler, which then gets passed along to the system users. In addition, we also provide participants with startup supplies, resources, ongoing support, and help them solve the initial logistical workflow barriers, provide bins, bags, and give them access to subsidized organic collection costs during the pilot period. And then the collected organic materials from the pilot participants are then processed. Oh, I skipped ahead a little bit. That's okay. Are then processed at our partner organics processing facility. So this is often anaerobic digestion. We've also done biogas before. But for the most part, it's processed at competitive rates at our local compost processing partner, and the compost is turned into a nutrient-dense soil amendment. And this is either sold directly to farmers to support regenerative agricultural practices like reductions in synthetic fertilizers, or it's bagged and sold back to local grocers for gardens and landscaping. So it's all cycled back as a transformed product into the local economy. When we go into these regions and communities, we're often partnered with the municipality, and they have particular goals in mind, but also the regional landscape can look different between different cities. So we go in and we evaluate the local landscape in order to tailor the pilot model to the community and the partner needs. So this can look like existing or upcoming municipal bylaws or programs for food waste diversion for ICI. We also look at the regional access to, say, processing infrastructure, how close it is, and what the hauler service looks like in the area for curbside collection, as well as who's in the area for potential food recovery. And then we also want to look at the composition of the ICI food generating businesses and establishments in the area to understand their key service needs in target pilot areas, because we know that different sectors have different needs, so we want to be able to tailor the pilot resources as such. So back in 2024, I'm gonna walk you guys through a case study of what one of these looked like, so you can kind of ground yourself in some examples of how it worked. So although we've done several pilots at this point, and we have a couple ongoing, this one in particular was a nice kind of short 6-month pilot program launched in Strathcona County, which is a small community. The town's called Sherwood Park. It's just off of Edmonton. It's a veteran community. We worked with local operational partners and funders, so GFL. Altroot was our organics processor, and Leftovers Foundation helped with on-the-ground program coordination, as well as the food rescue aspects, and some engagement around there. So the purpose of the project in this particular area was to support the municipality and their local ICI community, as well as the local service providers, in being able to build a solid foundation for advancing regional ICI food waste diversion solutions. So the pilot was used to test cost-effective organics waste diversion systems before the municipality was thinking of introducing a municipal policy, as well as engaging industry stakeholders early, as it helped build future infrastructure and service model readiness for the region, and almost most importantly, collecting data for benchmarking the local ICI diversion volumes and GHG emission reduction potential, as well as program feedback from the IC&I participants themselves, since all of this data kind of taken together was going to help the municipality make informed decisions about how to move forward after the pilot project. The pilot supported early adoption of the green bin programming as an opportunity for the businesses in the area to test out these different food waste diversion solutions and figure out what works best for their particular site. The pilots being like bringing in small scale pilots is often a more sort of risk-free environment for businesses to be able to test out these systems and kind of work the kinks out before either signing longer term private hauling contracts to continue diversion or readying themselves for a municipal bylaw that might be coming for diversion. This was some of the main goals for how we're trying to help out the ICI community in this particular region. And like I mentioned before, we also provided other benefits during it to kind of make it more of a cultural, social, behavioral change instead of just them having to take on the burden of another waste stream. So alongside the subsidized collections, we also provided advisory support both at startup and ongoing from the CIC team. And our data helped us develop some custom climate and social impact reporting for them, so they understood what their establishments were actually diverting during the pilot project. Some of those actors also realized benefits if they're diverting high enough volumes that they could save the space if they're diverting organic materials from their, say, garbage dumpsters, then they were able to reduce dumpster sizes, which saved space in some of their waste areas, and also helped reduce the costs by right-sizing that. So if you're not paying as much for a dumpster, or you can reduce the frequency of it being picked up, because this material is now in an organics cart, that helps kind of offset the additional costs of this new system they have to take on. Okay, so for the design and partnerships leading up to this, we had made sure that the program was collaboratively designed and implemented, not just alongside the municipal partner, but also alongside the service providers themselves and the nonprofit partners like Leftovers locally that all have different roles to play in the system and therefore should be a part of designing it. So just a brief overview, CIC, we provided the pilot model blueprints and led program management. Leftovers Foundation and Strathcona County staff helped with coordination as well as municipal advisory support from their experience and perspectives. And then we had GFL and AltRoute as well as a couple of suppliers help with the local service and technology as well as their own kind of industry expertise. And so decisions along the way were made collaboratively and iteratively. We'd even after we launched the program, we come up against some particular challenge that's maybe unique to the region, and we all kind of have discussion and work together to find a solution to overcome it and kind of move the system forward like that. During the 6 months, 15 IC&I establishments participated in the Sherwood Park area over a range of different subsectors, so restaurants, groceries, cafes, as well as a couple of food manufacturers. Our outreach for this particular pilot focused on SME inclusion, so the small and medium-sized generators, as in this particular area, they benefit the most from the group service model. All participants signed up for the pilot's organics collection services. Only a couple ended up using the food rescue app, mostly due to there being a very well-used local food bank in a small community nearby. Our partner hauler GFL ended up integrating participants into their existing institutional service route, so that helped improve the efficiency of that route, not create an extra additional couple fragmented routes, and overall kind of like consolidated it and helped reduce transportation costs. And then additionally, CIC provided small subsidies on top of those, cost reductions. So it was easier for each participant to start up. So each participant paid about $10 for a 240-liter cart for weekly collection. And the reason this additional subsidy was provided is because we were trying to even out the startup of diversion to be as equal with disposal costs as possible. So disposal landfill is traditionally a lot cheaper than diversion costs, and the cost disparity between those two things is often a large barrier. Like I mentioned earlier, participants received advisory support and supplies, and we also tracked organics diversion for each participant, including the estimated tonnage diverted, GHG reductions, and resources recovered, like compost produced, and created both tailored impact reports for them, but also were able to provide the municipality with some more cumulative insights. So on this slide here, you can see over the 6 months, there were only 15 small businesses participating, and collectively they diverted about 34 tons of food waste from landfill. So that's fairly significant for small generators. And this is the equivalent to about 16 tons of healthy soil amendment created for regenerative agriculture. In this particular case, it was applied to some fields that were a farmer was looking to reduce his intake of synthetic fertilizer. And using this, he was able to reduce it up to 90%, which is cool. And then the equivalent of about 34 tons of food waste being diverted from landfill is about a little over 1,000 tons of CO2e or methane emissions being avoided from entering the atmosphere. So just want to take you through some kind of high-level key learnings. Some large success factors that we realized during this was how important it was for the municipality to be interested in moving a system forward. I know a lot of responsibilities are put on municipalities to sort of be the system fixers, which is not always fair to their capacity and budget. But just the leadership and willingness to want to make the system change, I think contributed a lot to the success in this case. Also stakeholder collaboration goes along with this, being able to kind of create those public-private partnerships, and CIC kind of being a third party that can facilitate that, allowed them to build a relationship and move forward past our involvement, with their own system building. And then from the participants themselves, they said, alongside a little bit of cost savings, the next most important thing was being provided tools. Okay, thanks, Alex. I think I have like 2 slides left. While we were running it, common barriers we came up against, obviously, was still the cost of organics collection, despite the, slightly lowered service costs. There were still many, many businesses that we reached out to that just could not afford it at the time. This being back in 2024, a lot of the food service sector, it was still kind of in their, cost recovery phase of extremely narrow margins, being impacted from COVID. And so we ended up with a pretty low voluntary participation rate, which isn't uncommon. And lastly, being able to evaluate KPIs was absolutely essential to this. So in short, data is needed to be able to properly inform policy and justify moving forward with programming, bylaws, infrastructure investment, both from the municipality's side and also from the service providers. So some post-pilot program impacts. We were extremely happy when Strathcona County was excited to take over the program management, and they actually ended up expanding it into an early adopters program that still exists for their ICI sector, past the participants we recruited. And they're using the findings to inform their upcoming ICI organics bylaw development, which is excellent. So, by being able to use some of the learnings, especially the quantitative data in this, they were able to present a case to move that forward, and also be able to prioritize building and ongoing performance tracking. And also more broadly, the pilots provide evidence that municipalities can de-risk policy transitions by using pilots. So it's just a good, smaller, more manageable and cost-effective strategy to try things out and be able to, produce a case to present to council, for example. before kind of moving forward with a full-fledged program. And also the model we use, although tailored to different contexts, is pretty replicable in different communities. So, we're trying to improve access, create consolidation, improve system efficiencies by working with the local partners and smartly choosing the geographic regions to test it within. This is my last slide, Alec, I promise. So in the bottom right here, it's just a kind of an overview of thus far, updated in 2025 altogether, with all of our past pilot projects and ongoing ones. The businesses that have been recruited onto these projects have in total diverted almost 600 tons of organic waste from landfill, which is amazing. And for the programs that ended up incorporating food rescue, there's been over 90,000 meals recovered and redistributed back to the communities, and almost 7,000 tons of methane emissions also avoided from entering the atmosphere. So we're happy. Pilot programs, like this can enable regional circularity. And it helps with downstream resource recovery, circular end management, allows data-enabled decision-making for the local stakeholders, and also helps reduce the barriers in general for ICI sector adoption of these diversion systems so they can use the existing systems instead of having to reinvent the wheel for themselves. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Maggie. The council is doing a lot of great work. My hat's off to everything that you guys are doing, and excited to see everything that you're doing there. So let's pull up a poll question if we can. Will or Mackenzie, if we can do the second live poll, the one referring to technical assistance programs, and bring that up on the screen. What we want to ask folks is, in your community, is there a technical assistance program specifically to support businesses with food waste diversion, either an NGO driven or by the municipality, others? So you can see a couple options to choose from, whether we have an ongoing program or more of a limited pilot stage, or if you're in the planning stages. While we're letting people respond to that, Maggie, I know there was a question from Kristen, had one here about edible food recovery mandatory in Canada. Is there a mandate the way that I know California, Washington, some other U.S. states have now? How does that work on a regulatory basis in Canada?
Yeah, if we're talking about like a municipal bylaw level, from my understanding and some of the landscape analyses we've done in general on food waste diversion across Canada, there isn't currently an existing mandate for even large generators to donate surplus food or divert surplus food. However, Montreal is currently in the process of creating one. So, they have actually they're large champions in Canada for Quebec in general for ICI, organic waste diversion, and reducing food waste. And so, Montreal in particular is trying to plan something to implement a diversion mandate for surplus edible food.
Excellent. I know in the U.S., most issues having something to do with waste, at least from a regulatory perspective, tends to happen on the state level. There's very little on the federal level. Is that also true in Canada? That tends to be more of a province level?
I would say a mix of province and municipal, but correct in that, federal level in Canada also it doesn't have the granularity in what say the US would often see the states do. In Canada, I would say the province often sets targets. That's sort of their role. So there are a few that have organics diversion bans from landfill. Often it is meeting various waste reduction or GHG emission reduction targets. And then the municipalities are often the one that take on the responsibility of sort of the on the ground operationalizing of the actual reductions themselves.
Got it. Great. Good. So just if we can publish the poll results so people can see this, looks like roughly 40% of those who responded were saying that there is an ongoing active assistance program targeting food waste. Another 13% are sort of in a limited or pilot stage, and a handful are in the planning stages. But Great. Well, thank you, Maggie. We'll go ahead and transition now. Well, if we can advance the slides, I'll introduce our next two speakers. We have Leslie BAESENS, again, who is the Food Resiliency and Waste Program Administrator with Denver's Department of Public Health and Services, Department of Public Health and Environment. And she'll be joined by Amber Barbella, who is the founder and Diversion Designers. And I'll let the two of them take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Alec. Thank you. So Amber and I are going to tag team this presentation, and we'll be talking about our restaurant challenge in Denver. Next, please. So we'll go into the nitty-gritty of what the restaurant challenge is about, but first, to set the stage, why a restaurant challenge? Well, first and foremost, the restaurant sector is the highest waster of food in the city of Denver. This is according to a report by the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC. So the highest waster after residents. I don't think I said that, but that's important. So they waste about 25% of the food in the city. Residents waste about 40%. So it's an important sector to work on. We also have an upcoming universal composting and recycling ordinance that will require restaurants and apartment buildings, et cetera, to offer composting and recycling. So this was a really good time for us to engage that sector in helping them divert more waste away from the landfill. Composting is more expensive than landfilling. So to get restaurants to think more upstream and reduce food waste was really important to us. DDPHE, the department I'm based in, focuses heavily on prevention. That's the core, that's my core job, is prevention. Everything that has to do with composting is our Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. So this was our way to get involved. And then finally, Denver has a document called the Denver Food Vision. It has a food waste reduction target of 57% by 2030. And so this was just one way to try to reach that target. The other is, doing residential outreach and other programming. Next, please.
Hi, everyone. The challenge has been laid out over two cohorts that consist of 12 weeks each. And the first cohort was in summer, fall of 2025, and we're in the middle of our second cohort right now. So it's been about a year. Our partnerships, I think, are kind of the bread and butter of this program. We have a really strong cohort of experts with different backgrounds and different skill sets that are all working to build this into reality. So being able to tap into each person's specific skill sets has been great. The layout of the program is point-based, and whoever who ends up with the most amount of points at the end becomes the winner. And the points are broken out by participation, self-waste tracking, site visits, and then typically we'll provide a list of recommendations, and then they can choose which strategies work best for them and pursue those on their own for points. And then also communications and sharing to their own customer base is also a way to get points. We've been very intentional with the design of this program to do prevention and reduction first, and then compost as a last resort, which I think has been really special and kind of an incubator to get a lot of creative ideas flowing within all of the participants. This challenge is also very flexible. We really understand that every restaurant has their own challenges, their own nuances and needs. And so we really meet everybody where they're at and can cater the challenge to their goals and their needs at this time. And then we offer a high amount of hand-holding. There's a lot of consultants involved in this program. And so people are able to ask for support as much or as little as they would like.
So a few words on our partners. So we have Diversion Designers, and that's Amber that's on this call, who is offering partner supports in terms of keeping everyone engaged. She's able to do in-person site visits whenever needed. We also have the Center for Eco-Technology, CET. So CET has really been instrumental in developing the challenge concept, the materials, etc. We are also working with the Drexel Food Lab and Professor Jonathan Deutsch, who has helped our participants with reworking recipes, troubleshooting areas that are issues with surplus ingredients, etc. And that's where we have seen some of our biggest successes, and we'll go over that in just a little bit. We're also partnering with a food rescue organization called We Don't Waste. They are able to do small volume donations using their app, We Rescue, that uses volunteers to pick up these small volume donations. My department is offering project management for this project, and also not listed on here because I remembered too late, but we're also working with a behavioral change consultant called Action Research. And just to add on to something Amber said in the previous slide, so behavior change is a component of this challenge. And we're doing that through easy wins like the point system, which, by the way, shout out to Memphis because that was one of their ideas in their own restaurant challenge. We also are trying to build small steps that end up in a big win. So in order to keep the restaurants engaged, having like small measurable ways of building up these points so that they feel like they're winning and we keep them going. So that was another nudge from the behavioral change consultant. And then having consumer facing materials so that the general public can ask questions and keep the restaurants engaged.
So we have been very intentional with facilitating unified communications with each cohort of restaurants, and we believe that with that network building, people can really lean on each other and troubleshoot and problem solve together. So with that, we host a kickoff meeting at the very beginning of the challenge where we've been inviting every single participant to come meet each other, learn more about the program that they have just signed up for, and also get to know one another a bit better. One of the components that also leads to points is a self-audit, and we think that doing a self-audit as opposed to the technical advisors auditing their waste really gets everybody's perspectives shifting a little bit themselves, and really is an opportunity to get the entire workforce involved in the program. So we do an audit before the challenge, in the middle point of the challenge, and also at the end of the challenge to ideally track food waste reduction over the course of the 12 months. Leslie mentioned Drexel Food Labs. They have been an amazing partner, and they typically meet with each participant at the beginning of the challenge, and they have a special place and position because they come specifically from the food industry, which is very beneficial when it comes to getting restaurants engaged. So when they meet with Drexel Food Labs, they'll start to have an open discussion about what are the most common food waste that they are seeing being thrown away, and then problem solve different opportunities for upcycling or implementing new menu items to reuse those food scraps. One example is a current cohort participant is a barbecue restaurant, and they're seeing a lot of small veggie scraps getting thrown away, and they're going to start pickling and adding the pickled veggie scraps to their side selection. One thing that we have found is really important is to involve all of the staff, and typically we're having different types of conversations for different types of staff. So we'll have one conversation with management and ownership about high-level components of the program, while we'll speak more technically with the folks that are in the kitchens managing the waste on the day-to-day about exactly where things need to be placed and all of the operational needs for this transition. And yeah, I think training also goes into involving all of the staff, and I think training is a big piece of successful operational shifts within restaurants. Next, please.
So now that we wrapped up cohort 1, I just wanted to present one of the success stories so you see a little bit of what's possible and how the different actors were involved. So we've worked with Restaurant Olivia, which is an upscale Italian restaurant. And Restaurant Olivia came to us with a problem in that they had a surplus of egg whites. They were making their pasta with egg yolk and had so many surplus egg whites that they couldn't reintegrate the egg whites into their other recipes. So they worked with Drexel Food Lab to modify their pasta recipe, and they were able to incorporate more whole eggs to a point where the egg white surplus became manageable and was able to be fully used into their operations. As you can see on this slide, this resulted in a staggering 18,000 plus eggs being saved every year, which is kind of mind-boggling. Together with, I think just for the eggs, that's a $5,000 saving, which includes some staff time because it was a pretty significant amount of staff time to crack all these eggs. In addition to that, the other thing they did is like they serve a small bread, like a whole little bread, to every diner. And they hadn't in the past been able to fully match the number of diners with their bread recipe. So we were able to work with them to help them rework the recipe so they could more closely match how many people were going to be dining with how many breads they were going to make. And that resulted in an additional saving, which combined with the eggs was about $16,000 a year. And so for a small business, that's quite significant. And that really shows what is possible when you, when you engage and are able to be open-minded and change your operations. So they also were in quite a few media appearances, both on local print and TV, to showcase their success. And I think that's another really cool part of the challenge is the media is really interested in this topic and is able to showcase some of the participants who are doing really cool work.
Well, I think Leslie kind of tapped into some of these, but we have overall seen really exciting stories come out of every single participant, and no story is the same, which I think taps into what I was saying about being able to meet everyone where they're at and being creative and innovative with this has really led to a lot of success. There was a lot of media coverage for the winner, which was Restaurant Olivia, but also other participants. And so that was really helpful in recruiting for cohort 2, because one of the big selling points of signing up for this challenge is increased visibility for their storefronts. So we were really able to showcase how increased media coverage can lead to increased foot traffic. The 12-week program was enough to guide every restaurant to a successful operational shift, while it also allowed restaurants to move at their own pace, choose their own strategies, and request help as needed. And so some restaurants wanted to do everything, and they really went full force on changing a lot of the more foundational pieces of their kitchen, while some were owner operated, didn't have a lot of time, but were still able to think through creative ways to save time, also reduce cost and food waste.
So we had a lot of successes, but if you're interested in doing your own restaurant challenge, there are some challenges as well. So first and foremost, recruitment can be tough. And this is because the idea of we don't waste food is really pervasive in the industry, despite knowing that, you know, there's definitely food going to waste. So trying to make that business case as the why, there's also, you know, such small profit margins that it's difficult sometimes to explain to the operators that spending a little time now can result in really big savings, such as in the case of Restaurant Olivia. So that transition can be a little bit tough from like discussion to actually getting them to sign up. Once you have actually recruited restaurants, we have also had uneven involvement of the restaurants, and we have had in the first cohort one dropped out. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you have a target in terms of the number of establishments that you'd like to reach, that's good to keep in mind. But I think this is where, you know, and we're going to talk about that in another slide, knowing kind of like tailoring how much communications we do with the different restaurants to try to keep them engaged, but without being overbearing has been important. So difficulty in seeing monetary value, that's kind of what I was referring to before. It's just like having them step away from the day-to-day operations to do this one additional thing that feels like a lot to the operators. And so this is where it's making that shift and that thinking of, if I do this little extra now, I can save a lot in the future. That can be challenging. It's been helpful to have the case studies now that we have done the first cohort so that we can actually show how much saving is possible. But when you first start recruiting, that can be a little bit difficult. And then, so this is listed in the challenge, but the most successful establishments already had someone focused on sustainability. And I think that that kind of speaks to capacity. Is just like that person, such as in the case of Restaurant Olivia, they had a sustainability person on staff, was able to keep things moving forward and going. And it also shows that the establishment already has a commitment to sustainability. So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
So as I said, the second cohort is currently in full swing, and all of the restaurants signed up are working through which strategies that they are most excited to pursue over the next few weeks. Part of the project when Leslie brought us on was to have a public-facing event for both cohorts to showcase to Denver residents what the work that we've been doing. And I kind of got carried away and made it its own big thing. So I'm really excited. We have partnered with a communications firm to build out a zero waste food tour. So the participants from cohort 1 and 2 are able to sign up. They're going to choose one dish to add to their menu for 2 weeks in May. And essentially, anyone can sign up for the scavenger hunt, and they'll receive a card on their phone to be able to click stamps every time they go to a different restaurant to eat the dish and try the dish and learn about the dish that used upcycled materials or reduced food waste in their own way. And whoever goes to the most restaurants will be entered into win a multi-course meal at Restaurant Olivia. Another piece of this is we will be engaging an influencer. So we're really trying to come at this from a couple of different pathways. So we're hoping that the influencer will really generate energy around the public to get a lot of people interested in the zero waste food tour. And then the end all goal is to get increased foot traffic into these restaurants.
Just in closing, something we did not mention, but that's really important, is that this restaurant challenge was made possible thanks to a grant from the USDA. So we were very excited to get that money to be able to partner with all the different folks that we mentioned in the presentation and get this moving forward. So yeah, if you would like to get in touch with us, here is our contact information. Always happy to answer questions, and thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Leslie and Amber. Again, lots of great things that you're working on in Denver. You mentioned Action Research and who helped with doing some of the behavior research, and they're great folks. I know they presented on a webinar we did last fall. Good. So we have a number of questions that come in. Maggie, if you want to join us, and well, we could go. Let's go ahead and turn off the slides for the moment, and we'll just take some of these questions. I realize we are coming up against the hour, so just again, for anybody who has to jump right away, just know that the recording and slide deck, as well as these the various resources that I've been dropping into the chat, all that's going to be posted on our website in the next day or so, and we'll be sending out an email to anybody who registered. So just know that that's available. We'll take a couple of questions though before we wrap up. Let me start with one from Jenny, and this is primarily for, I think, for Leslie and Amber, but the platform for how do for the restaurants that participate, what is the platform that you use for them to report and participate?
So we do have a website, and that's where they sign up. But otherwise, a lot of the communications is just done one-on-one. So we just don't necessarily have a platform that they engage in. We send them emails, we call them, they keep track of their waste manually, although we give them the opportunity to do that online if they would like. But we're just trying to lower the amount of barriers that would require like signups and different things to make it as easy as possible for them and not have to, create a bunch of logins and things like that.
Yeah, great. And I'd be curious if for all the folks who answered earlier with the poll question that you have local programs, if you have platforms that you work with for doing reporting and all, let's use the chat. It'd be great to share some of those. So feel free to drop those in. There was it's a little bit of a call this related, but just in terms of collecting the data, when it comes to choosing who the winner was, can you talk a little bit about sort of how the data works and how that was measured and all?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we did our best to make, again, it accessible. So we have an internal scoring matrix that is also sent to the participants. So if they really want to get competitive with it, they know exactly what is going to get them the most points. And it goes back to the general categories that I was mentioning earlier, the waste tracking, participating in the waste tracking, participating in the site visits, and then choosing and executing these strategies in the number of strategies that they pursue over the 12 months.
Yeah, great. We had a couple of questions come in, and Amber, Leslie, you kind of addressed this with one of your closing slides, but Maggie, if you have anything you want to add or anything else, just that, how do you get businesses to participate? Any other pro tips, additional points that we'd offer? Because obviously this is one of the big challenges.
Yes, yeah, I think what Leslie and Amber touched on is typically also what we experience. So I didn't have time to dive fully into it, but we do a lot of the one-on-one email, phone call, door knocking engagement, and find that door knocking, engaging one-on-one, especially with someone at like a decision-making level at whatever establishment you're trying to get to, whether that is like a restaurant owner or a franchise owner or a high-level manager. We found that had more uptake often than like handing information off to an employee. Also, Leslie definitely touched on it, but ones that are already sort of like sustainability mindset branding focused. So a lot of kind of independent, smaller brands, or sometimes like larger grocery retailers, for example, that might have like corporate like ESG goals to reach. Obviously, the data can be filtered into that and help them report back on that. So that's we found good uptake there too. For the most part, though, I'm sure you guys experience something similar, but in regions that maybe don't have like an organic waste diversion or food waste diversion bylaw, there's little like top-down driver or motivation for like a mass adoption of a program or a diversion practice. And that's really common just across everywhere. So small pilot projects and programs are good ways and sizes to test some of the things we're all trying to test here, because by default we're going to have small cohorts in them, and sort of the best you can do is making sure that you have like a good representation of all of the different business types or subsector types that you're trying to learn from, and implement things for.
Yeah, it certainly it points to, with any sort of behavior, whether it's individual or organizational, you have those who are going to lead into it and those who are going to lead backwards. And I think certainly when you look at California and other states that are starting to look at the regulatory route, at the end of the day, it's the stick oftentimes is what gets folks on board, even if after the fact they may realize the value and find it.
Yeah, I think both from these learnings like that I presented, but also just a kind of general industry experiences, it's important to have both. So it's important to have like bottom up pilot programs and programs like Leslie and Amber are delivering to actually like support them in transitions and starting up and developing behaviors and practices, and having that like one-on-one advisory, even though it's a large lift en masse. While being like also married with the kind of top-down driver of the encouraging with mandates and city support.
Yeah. A question we had, again, it could go either direction, but providing sort of the pass-through assets, creative materials, posters, banners, et cetera, that's local businesses. Is that something that's part of both the Denver Challenge and does CIC do that with its program working?
Yes, we were working with we had a graphic designer, so CET helped with the language of a lot of our assets, and then the graphic designer, put all that, made it all look good, and then the businesses were able to order as little or as many of these collaterals as they wanted, and they were getting points for displaying some of the collateral. So this is where, again, like the small steps that add up. Small wins to earn points.
Great.
I'll just jump in quickly. Yeah, CIC. Yes, for our programs, we also have like physical promotional engagement outreach materials. And usually that's in the form of handouts, especially for like door knocking. So they have something to like pass off to, say, a manager if they need. And, we try and brand it in bright colors and, take them through the steps of why it's important and give them, impacts from past pilots and try and highlight some benefits for them. And then also we'll do social media promotion of our participants. And depending on the municipality's capabilities, sometimes they're also able to kind of help amplify that and get into the local networks a little bit more. In the current Edmonton pilot, we're testing out window stickers right now with our new logo. So that's exciting. People are starting to request more of those. So kind of just, physical presence of the pilot to hopefully drive some public awareness.
Yeah, great. We'll take one more question and then wrap up. And there are a couple questions that come in on sort of the budget side of this. I know, Leslie, Amber, you mentioned that the funding for this has primarily been through grants, but are you able to share what the overall budget is? And I guess I would add to that, is there a path forward that's already been identified outside of this grant to be able to continue the program, or any insights in terms of how it moves forward beyond a grant, if at all?
Yes, so the grant was just shy of $400,000. That included a pretty sizable grant, sub-grant to We Don't Waste, for them to continue developing We Rescue, so their platform for rescuing small volume donations. So that was like, it's like in addition to the restaurant challenge. So they were providing, they're picking up donations as part of the challenge, but there's a whole other component where they were awarded funds to recruit more volunteers, engage more donors, etc. So that's a pretty big piece of it. But then about half of the 400,000 went to the various consultants. So Action Research, diversion designer, the Center for Eco-Technology, the graphic designer. We had some translation budget, the printing. And I see another question about, yeah, how do we finance the consultant? And so it was all done through the grant. I don't have a budget at the city to do this. It also included the budget for all the workshops, the little, the kickoff event, the closeout event. So all of that was roped into the grant. In terms of next steps, I don't currently have budget to carry this forward. The city is going through some pretty severe budgeting shortfall. So right now, once we close this out, we'll kind of be on hold. And then we'll just, be fundraising and see what we can make happen next. So yeah.
Maggie, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I guess, do you have any insights in terms of the individual projects in individual cities, what the budgets have looked like for that? Or
yeah, sure. So I would actually say it hovers around the same sort of operational costs from what we experienced. It kind of varies depending on how long we've designed the pilot for, since a lot of the cost is staff, like management and coordination time, as well as if we are providing any sort of like little subsidy on top of it for like, a few dollars off per cart collection. But then also, that kind of plays also into some of the service costs that we're subsidizing as well. So I would say probably about 50%. So between $100,000 and $200,000, depending on the length of the pilot. The shorter is closer to 100,000, obviously. But then, depending on whether we're providing subsidies, depending on how engaged or how deep we're going in our like communications and outreach and like media promotion efforts, can eat up a chunk of the budget. But it's about 50% staff time, 50% operating costs, I would say. We also get grants from usually municipal government, although we've done federal before, and a little bit of corporate funding.
Great. Good. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to wrap it up. I do have a couple closing slides. Well, if we can bring that back up on the screen. We'll have a couple of things I'll point to. As I said multiple times, the recording and slides will be available on the next day, so look for that email. I also want to just give a shout out. We've been doing this webinar series now for go back to 2021, so we've got a number of recordings from past, including two different programs that are really touching also very closely on this topic around food waste from restaurants, and as well as one from office settings. So you can find those as well as our full archive of programs on all different aspects touching on behavior, operational issues, different sectors from hospitality to healthcare to colleges and universities. You can find all these programs on our website or by clicking on this QR code. And next slide. We're looking forward to our program next month. We're going to be going for more of a direct look at the behavior side and engagement, specifically how working with employees for large institutional settings, for government, corporate, et cetera. So we're going to have two great speakers, Stacy Savage with Zero Waste Strategies, as well as Cindy Rogers-Lemke, who is with the custodial management company SBM. So join us on April 8th for that. We'll have a link to that registration. We'll go out with the recording in the next of today's program in the next day or so. Next slide. If you happen to be out and about, I'll be traveling to and speaking at a few conferences over the coming month. I'll be in a couple weeks. I'll be in Massachusetts for the Mass Recycle conference, talking about sort of infrastructure and how you design infrastructure for behavior. And then I'll be at the outside of Minneapolis at the end of the month, beginning of April, for the Recycling Association of Minnesota and SWANA's conference, talking about the confidence in behavior and how we message people to build confidence in the recycling system. One last time, thank you, Leslie, Amber, Maggie. Great presentations, great programs you're all doing. We look forward to hearing about success going forward. And thank you again. If folks want to reach out to any of our speakers, you can find their email addresses up here. And I think I just have a couple closing slides. When you drop off, you likely will get a prompt from Zoom to fill out a few questions. We appreciate if you take a minute. There's just 3 questions just to help us give feedback to our speakers and help us improve the program. So I encourage folks to take a minute to fill that out. And then last slide. If you are participating with SWANA or another CEU kind of program and you need something just verifying that you attended this program, reach out to my colleague Mackenzie and we can have something sent that just gives you sort of proof of having attended this. So feel free to reach out to us. Maggie, Amber, Leslie, thank you again. We're going to go ahead and close off the program if you want to turn off your cameras, and I'm going to hand it over. Welcome my colleague, Rayanne, with our sales team to talk a little bit more about some of the fine recycling and waste bin products that Busch Systems creates. So, Rayanne, if you're there.
Hi.
There. Good. How are you doing today?
Good. How's everybody doing today? Good.
Doing well on this end.
Okay,
I'll hand it over to you.
Keep it short and sweet because I know you guys have been here a little bit longer than the hour. But again, my name is Rayanne. I've been working here at Busch Systems for about 8 years or so. I'm sure I've worked with a lot of you over the years. So I'm just going to briefly go over a few of the options we have for our containers, touch a little bit on our company. I know you guys all know who we are because that's who you've been invited by. But just a little bit about our B Corp. So we've just been recertified as a B Corp organization, which is very important to us. So sustainability, giving back, that's something that's key to our organization. So just some important things about us. And this year in particular, we're upping our recycled content on a lot of our containers. So just another couple pieces that are important to us. I do want to thank all of our speakers. It was such a great, insightful presentation today. So lots of great information. And behind me, we have this is our trade show room, basically our virtual trade show room. So if anybody is ever interested in learning more about specific products that we do have to offer, just reach out to me. I'm sure Alex is going to share my contact details, or one of my colleagues, and we'd be happy to run through specifics on certain products, or if there's a project you want to work on, we'd love to work with you. So behind me, I just picked some of our most popular containers. So this one in particular, I'm sure most of you have seen something like this. It's our Waste Watchers series. I know compost and organics is the center of this webinar today. So we do have our organics here, and it is paired with our recycling and our waste containers. So these are made out of plastic, and in particular this year, we have launched our PCR version of our Waste Watchers. So post-consumer recycled content. Obviously, it's something that's really blown up in the last couple of years, and we also think it's very important. So just reach out to your sales rep if that's something you'd like to learn about. But our bodies, we can now produce in it in black, and then a darker gray color, and then some lids as well. So that's just something new that we've come up with in the last 18 months or so. One thing I'm going to touch on is the lift lid for organics. So in particular, a lot of our customers are interested in this. This lid in particular is a vented lid, so it has a charcoal filter in it, and that does help with smells and everything like that. So this is something unique to us that we do offer. So if it is something that you guys need for composting, definitely feel free to reach out. Or we do have all the other various lids as well, as we know recycling is important as well, the mixed lid option. So the Waste Watchers probably are most popular, especially in restaurants. It's a little bit on the less expensive scale within our product line, and very functional. It has a dolly system. You can move it in and out, and looks great, and has all the colors and customizations that you want. The next couple are, this is our Mezzo and our Spectrum. So they're made out of powder coated steel. Again, the Spectrum comes in different sizes, different colors, different lid options. We have a lot of variety. And again, probably besides the waste watcher, our most popular container. A lot of versatility with it, especially the colors. As we all know, custom signage, custom labels, colors is what truly encourages people to properly compost or recycle. So that's kind of at the center of that series, and I think why it is so popular. And it also looks great. I think aesthetically it's very, very sharp. So, and as well as the Mezzo. These are custom labels on the front. So just to touch a little bit on our customizations, it's really something that we do every day. So if that is something that you're interested in, just reach out again. We can add anything to your custom sign or label. So say, for example, there's a specific food that you sell in your lunchroom or in the restaurant, and you want to make sure that they're putting it in the right bin. You can add those icons or even a real picture to our labels or our signage. So we do have an in-house graphics team that can work with you on these things. So it's just a really, really great thing that we do here at Busch Systems, and do a little bit different than our competitors. And then here is our mosaic. Something different about this line, it just launched actually, I believe, last year, is again, when you come to signage, we have an option for signage on all four sides. And this is a modular unit like our Spectrum and Waste Watcher, where you can add as many streams as you want. So as you can see, we have the recyclables and the organic stream for this one. Really popular, and you can have a lot of fun with the graphics. You can add your logo, you can add custom icons, anything you want with this one. Lastly, I'm going to touch on, these are our little guys, which is our kitchen composters, with going in the theme of our composting webinar. Very, very popular for municipalities or a restaurant just for a kitchen. I have one in my kitchen as well. These are made out of 100% PCR content, so that's very good. And then this one is our solid lift lid. As you can see, it's a little bit larger than some kitchen composters that you get, but also small enough to fit. I have people put it in their fridge or under their counters. It's very functional and at a very good price point as well. This one has the carbon filter again for smell, if that's something you're interested in, but it does shut pretty good, and that also helps with the smell or bugs or anything like that. Has a little handle as well, which is easy for servicing. And then behind these front featuring bins, you'll see we have some recycled lumber, which is also something we launched about probably 5 or 6 years ago. Very, very popular. We have a composting option within our recycled lumber line as well. You can add compost to any single bin. And they look really sharp in a kitchen, outdoor, whatever you need. And yeah, we also, for speaking with restaurants and in a kitchen, you can't see them, but we do have bins as well that have a tray option for a cafeteria style. So that's also a popular one. That's it for me. I just wanted to briefly go over a few of our bins, and thank you to our speakers. But if you do have any questions, I know Alex is going to share our contact details, and we'd love to work with you guys here at Busch Systems. Thank you.